And the wall has to be behind Ukraine for the right, for what is being promised to Ukraine. This is why we're here to remind the world to back Ukraine, to stand with Ukraine. Because our unity as a strength and power against this terrorism, against this regime. And if this stops, it's just gonna prove that the evil will prevail. It's just gonna prove that democracy is weak against the terrorism. It will just prove that the Europe is weak against the Russia. We here to show our solidarity with Ukraine, to show the strength against the Russian regime, against the Kremlin's Putin regime, the regime that decided that they can change the map of the Europe, the regime that decided that they can change or wipe up one nation or another, the regime that been feeding on the blood, on the cry, on the tears and death of the other people. This is not acceptable. This has to be stopped. And that's why the Russia has to be stopped by all means, and to prevent this from reappearing and happening in the future. For those who even think about invading another country or killing innocent people, this is going to be the strong message. And Ukrainians are showing this strong will, determination to show that there is no country, no dictatorship, no terrorist organization, whether it's Russia or anything else, has got rights to prevail against the light, against the democracy, against the freedom, against someone else's country. The border's been established. The border's been already signed, sealed. So no country has got right to dictate to the other country how to behave and what to do. And that's why Ukrainians is fighting for the survival. Ukrainian is fighting for the survival of the country, of our people, of the nation. But don't forget, Ukraine is not just defending Ukrainian territory. We standing as a shield against the tyranny, against the terrorism, the shield that defending entire Europe. Entire Europe now at risk. If for those who still think that the Russia can be discussed with, or for those who can think that the war will not touch them, they are either naive or not accepting reality. The Russia will not stop unless we put the end to this war and stop the Russia. Stop Russia! Stop the war! 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 We already see the action of the world, or I would rather say inaction of the world, and this is clearly, directly has got the consequences in Ukraine. The consequences that are way beyond the imagination. The consequences, it's a loss. It's a human loss and a territorial loss. The world's inaction has led to the Ukraine's been losing territories. Ukraine's been losing our people. And that loss is hardly to be replaced. It will take years to replace this loss. That's directly because of the inaction or not enough action against the Russia or in support of Ukraine. Ukraine is not asking to go and fight for. Ukraine is not asking to go and die for. Even the French president mentioned that NATO will possibly, or France will be thinking about sending the troops to help Ukraine. We're not even mentioning or talking about it because this will not happen in the nearest future. But what we're asking is to continue support to Ukraine and to help Ukraine. Ukrainians cannot just fight with the bare hands. Ukrainians cannot win the war or push the Russia back with the bare hands. We need arms. We need weapons. We need support. Constant support to continue this war, and what's more important, to end this war, to end against this tyranny, against these Kremlin aggressors. Ukraine needs arms, and that's what I'm saying. That the recent events, it's painful to even talk about that, but the Russia is gaining momentum because the delay in action from the West, because of the slow drip feeding of Ukrainian army, drip feeding of the Ukrainian fight for the survival. Don't forget, we fight in Russia and those who support the Russia. The Northern Korea didn't stop to send the arm to Ukraine, to the Russia. The Iran is sending the parts, and China sending parts to Russia. Because why? Because Russia can. Because Russia avoiding the sanctions, because Russia learn and adapt. Why it takes so long for world to wake up and realize that Russia is not any friendly country anymore, that Russia is not the country to sit down at the table and talk about this peace. The Russia will only accept one, it's a power, and that's why they're using that power. They're using that power to dictate what they want to achieve and what they want to be. They're using state power because our delay in action and hesitation to help Ukraine just enough. Unfortunately, it's not enough. The world has promised to help Ukraine and stand with Ukraine as long as it's necessary. But we don't want this war to go in infinity. And we cannot afford this war go on for decades or years. This war must end soon. This war must end with only one outcome. It's a total capitulation of the Russia, withdrawal from Ukrainian territory, and Ukraine to gain territories back. This is right course. And this is the only solution to end this war, is for the world to join the effort, to West is join the effort against the tyranny, against the Russia, and to force the Russia to withdraw. How long will be accepting the Russian threats, Russian propaganda, Russian tyranny, and take this as granted? Because they know, they see it, they feel, and they feeding on the hour delay in action. What the Russia would do. This was the question 2 years ago, and this is the same question is still on the lips and in the heads of most of the politicians and diplomats around the world. What action would Russia do if we do this and that? Stop thinking what Russia would do. Any negotiation and discussion and think about what they will do will only lead to more and more aggression from the Russian state, from the Kremlin's Putin regime. And we see this in their actions. We see this now. They behind the issues between Ukraine and Poland border. They behind the now the issues in Transnistria. They behind the issues around their border, because they feeding on our inaction. They feeding on our fear, and they feeding on their threat. Stop Russia, stop the war. 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 As I said, Ukraine cannot fight and win this war without your support. And that's true. There's nothing to be hidden behind. Ukraine is relying on the Western help. Because we know, we have no illusion who we're fighting for. We're fighting the largest country. We're fighting the large army, the largest army in Europe. We're fighting the big threat and that cancer that hanging over the Europe. What we do with cancer cells, we just cut it off. We need to cut off the Russia from all the institutions. They still sitting at the tables of the world organizations and dictating what to do. They still veteran all the good movements around the world. Why? Because they can. Why? Because they're inaction. Inactions and delays. Delays and not enough strength. Not enough unity. Not enough support. And that's why they doing all the crimes. 2 years. On Saturday, we commemorate 2 years of the Russian war started in Ukraine. This is not the new. The world knew about the Russian aggression for years, and yet did nothing. In Georgia, and they did nothing when Russia annexed Crimea and annexed east of Ukraine. The world did nothing. And they left Ukraine alone to deal with Russia. The peace talks lead to no results because Russia will only accept on their terms. The Russia will not accept anything less they want to accept. They have no intention to stop this war, and they have no intention to withdraw from Ukraine. That's why we need to be united. Not just today, not this year, but united against this happening in the future. Remember, Ukraine is defending Europe right now. But Ukraine should not and will not be left alone. And Ukraine must feel these shoulders behind of the bigger brothers, what we call European family. If we are family, we act as a family and helping one of others. And Ukraine now is a shield of the Europe. Help Ukraine protect Europe. Help Ukraine protect Europe. Help Ukraine protect Europe. Help Ukraine protect Europe.